For hundreds of thousands of years, the Canadian Shield has been known for its rolling landscapes and hilly sites. It has been proven to be a low-relief land, with its tallest point being roughly 1,700 meters. But did you know that long ago, predating humankind, the Canadian Shield resembled today's Himalayas? Yes, it once possessed mountains about 12,000 meters tall, taller than Mount Everest right now. But through a long and weary process of erosion, these wonderful sites have been figuratively and literally watered down. Lightning, thunder, rain, and wind are the tallest summit's worst enemies. But I'm not here to give you a geography lesson. I'm here to prove that external forces give you no choice but to mold and change who you really are, and that you can still conquer them before it's too late. When living in a complex civilizational setting, you live under layers upon layers of influences. Especially today, amid the information overload brought on by mass media, thinking completely for oneself has become a difficult task. Take a moment to consider the outside influences in your lives. They may be such institutions as the government, your school or your workplace, the media, your church, or even smaller influences like your inner circle of friends and family. Here, you have an entire world of screaming ideologies, morals, and expectations around you, lessening your sense of self one way or another. In other words, eroding your mountain's beauties. But don't get me wrong, am I saying to abolish law and order? Absolutely not. I'm saying that perhaps true freedom and stability can be found within yourself rather than within constantly pleasing the group. But what does the group's manipulation over the human identity look like? How can this process of social erosion be proven? Imagine a family tree. Your individuality and sense of truth is like that initial bubble at the very top. These are your hopes, your dreams, your innermost ideas and beliefs, which are at this point in time your whole world and fuel to move forward in life. But the cultures encompassing you say no. This is the truth. Perhaps you are not wise enough, beautiful enough, talented enough, principled enough. But then those cultures can branch off into subcultures, variations of their ideas, and even more pressures to second guess yourself. No, no, no. This is the truth. Eventually, this everlasting world of real truths, or what I like to call the assembly, becomes so vast that it buries those hopes and dreams of yours that have now become so very small. When I came up with this concept at age 17, during a high school lesson about de-individuation, I set out to better understand it. And I acknowledged that social erosion, it greatly differentiates from the de-individuation theory in terms of its roots. For example, what I learned about in my anthropology class, it explains the process of how humans lose their senses of self in specific group situations. Social erosion, on the other hand, it presents something a little more longer term, almost a timeline of the gradual decreasing of individuality over time and its lasting effects passed on to us today. And it's through mass social changes like innovation, migration, war, urbanization, and revolution that social erosion's so-called timeline essentially prolongs. Now, a lot of people equate revolution with evolution. in the sense that revolutions, they imply progress. But technically, after revolution upon revolution, 360 turn upon 360 turn, individual thoughts become unrecognizable. When so much goes on around you, when other people are dictating the fundamentals of your lifestyle, how can you pick up a mirror and not see something foreign? A mere product of ever-changing norms. What have I become? Social erosion has shown itself throughout many revolutions in history. The most critical, in my opinion, being the agricultural revolution. Now, this took place roughly 10 to 12,000 years ago, right around the time the last ice age ended, and this is also when humans began to domesticate animals and plants. Now, you're probably wondering where the connection is here to our senses of self being eroded. But what did I say the underlying issue to social erosion was? Complex civilizations. What do academics label the agricultural revolution? The dawn of civilization. Coincidence? I think not. You see, as farmers, merchants, and just about every kind of specialist began to emerge, post-agricultural humans were granted a break, right? Breathing space to reduce their constant effort in the world. But simultaneously, our core human abilities to hunt, gather, and build were being diminished. Amid our ancestors' happy and healthy little tribes who kept a keen us-against-the-world philosophy, the expert began to fend for them. Now, we all know the expert, don't we? Whether it be Big Brother, the factory in the big city, or the doctors making our discoveries one way or another, the citizens, the consumers, and the clients were being let off the hook to let their abilities otherwise shine. Fast forward to the industrialized 21st century, upon millennia of rising experts, those specialties gnawing away at our potentials technically aren't even stable anymore. Consider Wi-Fi. What if it's down? Consider cars. What if they don't start? Consider power. What if it goes out? Before the assembly intervened, humans once had healthy alternatives to their trials. We once solely used our creativity, the most useful tool we knew. But now, when the supply chains let us down, our creativity, it goes to mush. But am I implying that we must all become doctors, that we must reject the modern world, pursue anarchy, and abandon the assembly entirely? No. The innovations of the 21st century are indeed remarkable and necessary for our collective growth. But the danger lies in letting them completely overwrite our internal compasses. It's one thing to enjoy the convenience of the group, but a fine line is present between convenient and lenient. The effects of previous revolutions are typically something we inherit. It's a forced lifestyle based on the type of society we live in, making the individual lack the flex space to develop their own beliefs, morals, and consciences. Imagine, in millennia from now, after endless more discoveries, revolts, movements, and social changes, it will be virtually impossible to think like the common 2026 person, sending those mindsets of our happy and healthy tribes farther astray in time. The more the effects of conformity increase, the more our individuality will decrease. In that sense, it's a lose-win for ourselves and society because we can't help but feel hesitance, guilt, or embarrassment for not following the beliefs held by the majority. This brings me to the more philosophical aspect of social erosion. There exist endless endless doctrines of philosophy that can corroborate the social erosion theory. The most standout being the blank slate concept. The tabula rasa belief, Latin for blank slate, argues that morals come from experience, and that humans are born blank canvases. It's true. Autonomy is ambushed right from birth, and because of this, how we dream is so very different to how we actually act. In today's day and age, our wildest dreams are more often than not deemed unrealistic, delusional, crazy, far-fetched, and so many more labels that act as excuses to not try. But I say this, why not try? Because if we are born blank slates, we technically have nothing to lose. I wasted so much of my childhood and adolescence downplaying my capabilities because I was too afraid of living up to my peers' doubts. For years, I was told by my classmates to disappear, to die, and that I'll never amount to them or anything else. As a kid, I spent most of my lunches hiding out in the bathroom stall because I felt like a liability to be around. And after being ridiculed for every class presentation, poor grade, or social mistake I could fathom, I grew to believe, firmly, that I wouldn't accomplish anything in life without it being wrong or useless. But despite that chronic wear and tear on my self-esteem, here I stand on the TEDx stage before a wonderful audience, telling them all about that little girl's budding ideas. Thank you. But individuals who might think independently become social rejects at the hands of mediocrity, and they get drowned out by an ocean of evolving and fluctuating normals. Those who think independently should instead benefit the assembly at large, allow society to prosper through new ideas and outlooks, and cause a chain reaction to inspire even more wonderful ideas. Thunder and lightning cannot be conquered. Mountains cannot help being weathered down, but humans can. And it's simple. It's all in taking the initiative to do so. That is the stark difference between us and the mountaintops. So ladies and gentlemen, what do you really want? What idea, what invention, what solution do you want to shout from the hills? I may only be 20 years old, but I do know that instead of succumbing to society's haunting whispers trying to compromise your creativity, you can turn the tables, because it's never too late. Will the assembly try to break you? Absolutely. Will years of business, technology, politics, media, or any other kind of social custom try to intervene? More than you could probably imagine. But you do have a hope. It's that burning passion inside of you, whatever it may be. The weather will always try to shape you, but you have the choice. The choice to stand taller than the clouds and finally shape yourself. Thank you.